You're listening to DraftKings Network.
You know that sound. It's the sound of money hitting your Venmo account, a friend paying you back, or maybe it's getting cash back from your favorite business when you pay with the Venmo debit card, or it's realizing you can pay with Venmo at checkout at thousands of brands. Now, there are so many more ways to answer the question, what's your Venmo? Download Venmo today. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. Dosh Cashback terms apply.
Folks, the playoff season is here, and the only thing better than the game day predictions are the foods that come with them. Introducing Tums Fantasy Food Ball Pool, brought to you by Tums, America's #1 antacid brand, and DraftKings. Each week leading up to the big game, turn football into food ball by building your best game day plate for a shot at winning a share of $40,000 in cash prizes. Inspired by game day bites and tailgate treats, join the Tums Food Ball action during this playoff season's most heartburn-inducing times. Visit DraftKings.com/TumsFoodball between January 6th and February 9th to enter for free and select your game day plate before the start of each playoff round. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at DraftKings.com/TumsFoodball. When you feel the heat of the game, don't let the heartburn keep you on the sidelines. Try Tums Chewy Bites with a tasty outer shell and soft center for fast relief of heartburn, acid indigestion, and upset stomach. Check out Tums Gummy Bites, featuring a soft and easy-to-chew format for fast relief of occasional heartburn, acid indigestion, sour stomach, and upset stomach. Both available at Amazon, Target, and other major retailers nationwide. And for more heartburn relief fun, be sure to follow Tums at Tums Official on Instagram and TikTok.
Welcome to the Big Suey, presented by DraftKings.
Why are you listening to this show?
The podcast that seems very similar to the other Dan Le Batard podcast.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for that.
In fact, the only difference seems to be this imaging.
I have been tempted in restaurants just walking past tables to grab somebody's fries that if they're just there. That hasn't happened to you guys?
I've done it.
And now, here's the marching man to nowhere, Fat Face, and the habitual liar.
What's up, everybody? Your boy is back from paternity leave, and I have a very important announcement. UFC 311 MMA Hangout is back at Casa Tiki live and in person at the #1 UFC bar on the planet, Casa Tiki. We'll be watching UFC 311. That's Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. #2, we've got the bantamweight title also on the line between Merab Dvalishvili, and we've got Umar Nurmagomedov undefeated. Plus, we got a banger to open all that stuff up. Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill, 10 p.m. Saturday night at Casa Tiki Live if you want to pull up on the boys, or YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you watch the MMA Hangout. Support us. We love you. 2025, big year. We're back. Let's go.
I'm sorry. I am sorry. That just legitimately happened. I just asked Jessica if she had sent me a story about an Italian soccer club firing a falconer. It's not a falconer, right? A falconer.
No, it's a falconer. It's a falconer.
It's somebody who has trained a falcon, yes, for posting photos of a penis implant. And I thought it was Jessica who sent me that story.
I said, okay, Dan, now let's get you back to the home.
But it was Samson, was it you who sent me that story? Somebody.
Yes.
Okay, somebody sent me that story.
How'd you confuse the two of them?
Yeah.
I get it.
We were starting the segment, and I'm looking through my notes trying to figure out who it is that sent me the Falconer story, and there it is. David Sampson sent me that story. I'm not familiar with the story. I love the headline. What's the story?
The story is there's a team that has a falcon as a mascot, and when you have a falcon, you have a falconer who's the guy who controls the falcon and says, "Come back to me." And this guy got a penile implant because he wanted a button that he could press to control his erection and make sure that he can have sex whenever he wants to, for however long he wants to. And then he posted pictures of it on his social media account that's private, but somebody took a screenshot of it and then posted it publicly, and he got canned, absolutely fired. And he's shocked that he got fired for this penile implant.
You had Jess sending this to you?
I mean, I have too many notes.
Isn't that just called the G-spot?
It's a button.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
she knows.
Hard to find.
metaphorically, I guess.
Dan, help me right now, because this is it. This may be the moment.
This is it, huh?
After all we've been through, this could be it.
Is that a Rosebud Motel next to you?
Hey, Schitt's Creek. How about that?
That's my Hanukkah gift for my kids.
First episode
Rosebud
aired
Motel model.
10 years ago yesterday. First episode of that show.
Last time he were relevant.
Just a button.
That's a nice gift. I mean, is that the nicest?
We're going to need to cover for Dan now because he's gone.
They were in the
We've
finals
lost
twice,
him.
Billy.
So I'd like to talk about something.
What?
I'd like to talk about what it is to fire a player when you are reading a book on the sideline. And I'm sorry, Dan, you may not want to go there, but A.J. Brown's career with the Eagles is done. And I am so lit up about this subject because I don't understand why the coach is absolutely supporting his ability to be distracted like that on the sideline. And we're allowing a player to say, oh, this had nothing to do with the fact that me and Jalen Hurts don't like each other and I had one catch. I think it's an outrage.
David.
Jessica, it's just a spot. It's just a book.
Whoa. It's a button, David.
What are we talking about again?
Do you know what it is, David?
Let's put a button on that part of the
I've
conversation.
spent a lifetime looking.
What a ridiculous take, I must say, about A.J. Brown being done with the Eagles. I mean, last week you're cutting Mike Evans before he gets his bonus. This week it's A.J. Brown being cut for reading a book. I love what you're doing here because you're taking takes to places they've never gone before, but this is ludicrous.
He won't be an Eagle. You cannot have someone on the sideline who is doing that. You cannot bring your pregame preparation onto the sideline. We just wouldn't allow it.
He was bettering himself. He was reading to become better at his, like, he's preparing for his next snap.
You're buying that in the middle of a game, he needs to read a passage in order to remind himself what inner excellence is? Give me a small break. It's the middle of a playoff game.
I know, but why are you saying he's not going to be an Eagle? Because if he goes on during these playoffs to have massive games, they go on to the Super Bowl, he's going to be an Eagle. I mean,
he won't even be targeted next week.
Really?
Not even. He'll maybe again one target, one catch.
Wait, how does this work? So Jalen Hurts drops back, A.J. Brown is wide open, and he refuses to pass him the ball?
You've never heard of basketball players, teammates not passing each other the ball?
Of course,
they don't like each other.
Freezing a guy out, yes, but this is a playoff game where you don't have a ton of time to think about stuff, you know?
Oh, I think you think about it very deeply and strongly, and I think that A.J. Brown is going to walk himself right out of the playbook. Here's the book that I'd like him to read next weekend. How about the playbook or the unemployment income book? There's a whole book that we give you when we fire you, which is Cobra. It's how you can apply for unemployment. It's all the things you can do when you've been canned. That's the book I'd like to see A.J. Brown read.
You're saying A.J. Brown shouldn't read that book. I'm saying if Jalen Hurts makes that read, he should get canned.
It's a good joke.
It was a bad play on words. You don't have to
So
pat me on the back
bad.
for that. Dan's back. Hey.
I'm rattled.
You should be.
And I am objecting to his take. It is too strong, but you've seen him. Look, David's a very competitive human being. David runs 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days because he wants to win at all times. He's in the content game. He is a hustler. He has toured the country in the content game, and he's pushing his takes further and further out.
I love
because he's got to keep up in the content game, and the hot take is rewarded. All over the place, the take is rewarded, and David's pretty smart. And he's crafty, and so he's pushing his takes out into the extremes. And and plenty of people in Philadelphia would agree with him that A.J. Brown should be cut. He has served his purpose.
No, Eagles fans love A.J.
Not
Brown.
a person agrees with that.
They just want to win games. They don't give a
No,
shit.
wait a minute. A.J. Brown disgruntled, 1 catch you can get out of town. A.J. Brown 12 catches for 160 yards will love you forever, even if you're reading on the sidelines. Like that, I'm saying the same way they'll run Sirianni out of town even after wins because they're look, man, the Bills fan base is the best that there is in football because it donates charity, but passion of fans in an angry fan base turns into a very ugly thing. And the expectations in Philadelphia are in an unreasonable place where Sirianni's an idiot and A.J. Brown is as good as his last game, not the last one that he gave you 12 catches in, the last one that he gave you 1 catch in and was reading a book.
I mean, the expectations in Philadelphia Philadelphia are where the expectation should be in Philadelphia based on that roster. They're a very good football team. I don't care what their fans say or think. Their fans are a bunch of lunatics. I'm serious. And they're not allowed to celebrate this thing. They're not allowed to celebrate A.J. Brown because I'm certain on WIP they're calling right now Mark Gargano, and they're telling him right now, get rid of A.J. Brown. They're with David Sampson. And I'm telling you, Philadelphia, you are not allowed to root for this team because 6 weeks ago, you wanted to fire your coach, and most of you, I think most of you, do agree with David Sampson, and that's ludicrous.
Do you think A.J. Brown's not going to find a job if he's not on the Eagles?
Very easily. He'll find the job, yes.
Patriots, Vrabel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have an update, by the way, on the guy that was fired in Italy. He was also suspended in 2021 while he was filmed performing a fascist salute at the end of a match, chanting the name used to praise former fascist Italian leader Benito Mussolini. Quote, I admire him so much, he added on Monday's radio interview. So it sounds like maybe he had a prior history of...
Well, those are big-time anti-Semites over there, and you don't want to generalize, but that team that he works for is well known for their bad behavior, both fans everywhere in the organization, not a very inclusive place. But I guess being an anti-Semite is fine, but a penile implant, that's the line that you can't cross.
You know what? I've got to interrupt everything I'm doing because a sly grin just came across the face of one Stugotz. And when he gets this sly grin, I'm showing people behind the curtain here, everything around here has to stop immediately, no matter the segue, no matter how awkward. On his face, gleam in his eye, I can see that he has top 5 athletes if they were vegetables. I could see it. I could see it.
This is based on our conversation last segment where I called Jason Garrett Jason Carrot.
We don't have to give any explanation to anybody. I saw the gleam in your eye. Is any OLI or just top 5?
We have some OLI, yeah. Mookie Beats. Cam Radish. Dontario Potato. Number 5, Lou Broccoli. Number 4, Russell Westbrook. Number 3, Diana Zucchini. Number 2, Kevin McHale. And number 1, Dan, Jerome Lettuce.
It's a good list. I mean, that's as good as it gets.
Man,
right?
Come on.
That might be the best list ever.
On the fly, too. You did that pretty quickly.
Just don't do any more.
I mean, that's as good as it gets.
That's your best.
Good night, everyone.
Good job, Taylor.
Saw it in his eye. Saw it in his eye. It was gleaming. We have to stop everything we're doing whenever it is that we see this.
Cornelder.
We will get to Pablo Torre in a second, but Samson, give me all of your thoughts on Deion Sanders to the Cowboys and the Jerry Jones job opening. I can't believe we haven't talked about this yet.
I just don't see what the benefit is to Jerry Jones. When Deion went to the Buffaloes, it added a bunch of NIL money. They got a bunch of extra revenue at the school level with season tickets, et cetera, and it put their program on the map. The Cowboys' valuation isn't going to go up with Deion Sanders. They need to win games, and they need to win games in January and February. And to even flirt with Deion Sanders is a very funny thing for Jerry Jones, the GM, trying desperately to get away from Mike McCarthy and all the losing. So trying to go opposite of what McCarthy is, because Deion's done nothing, really never been an NFL coach, obviously. And you could say that his success in Colorado was based on maybe his son and the Heisman Trophy winner. I think this is a flirtation that will not actually result in a contract because there's just no ancillary benefit to Deion Sanders joining the Cowboys.
Squash Allen.
Oh, my God. How did I leave that out?
I am looking right now at an invitation. I'm going to switch gears here from athletes who remind you of vegetables, some nutrients of a different kind that nobody here is asking for or nobody wants. I'm going to ruin the show by looking here at an invitation for Monday night to a reception prior to the inaugural ball, celebrating the inauguration of Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, hosted by Tillman Fertitta and Mark Zuckerberg. And I want to bring in Pablo Torre because of some of what's happening right now in America that people might want to be paying attention to as the power is being dispersed among very, very wealthy people?
It's playoff time, Dano.
I understand, but just give me a brief moment to welcome in Pablo Torre and David Samson, and start with you, Samson, on how would you present everything happening around Zuckerberg, around Musk as well, but around Zuckerberg particularly, and how it relates to how we get information and where all the money seems to be aligning.
It's pretty shocking that you want to discuss this now, because this has been going on for decades, where there have been power brokers both outside the government who don't want to be in the government because they have more power not being the president or not being in the Senate. They have power pulling the strings. We've been dealing with this with sports, where you have owners who have been very quiet about their support of the right, except all that's changed is they're less quiet. And when you look at someone like Miriam Adelson, name you didn't mention, who took over the Mavericks from Mark Cuban, her husband was the #1 far right, absolute, what I would call, let me talk about Sheldon Adelson for 1 second. He was such that his wife couldn't be approved as owner of the Mavericks, so they had to have the son-in-law as the control person. So the NBA could have plausible deniability that they were kowtowing to people who have those views. Except in sports, they've always wanted people around them who have those views, because they're always interested in maximizing their valuations and their relationships with government, because they need the protections that government provides. What Donald Trump has allowed for is people to be more open. When you've got the Ricketts family, when Tom Ricketts was approved as owner, he was approved to own the Cubs only knowing that it was a trust that his father was funding, but his father could have nothing to do with the operation of the Cubs. So baseball could say, oh, we're not far right. But it's horse hockey. Of course, Joe Ricketts has been involved. Todd Ricketts has been involved in the operation of the Cubs. We just lie to the fans in order for them to believe that we are woke, that we are far left, that we care so much. But they've never cared, ever. They just hide it less well these days.
Pablo, you've reported on sports owners as well as anybody over the last year. I urge everyone listening to this. Pablo Torre Finds Out is a journalistic enterprise that has an assortment of reporting you will not find anywhere else. Miriam Adelson, John Fisher, Glenn Taylor, Matt Ishbia, the Suns owner. What you reported on him was crazy and no longer in the shadows. What have these people been hiding from public view that Trump doesn't make them have to hide anymore?
Well, just the transactionality of all of it. I mean, David does sort of summarize it well there, but I just a different sort of angle to it, which is that invitation that you read, the Ricketts family, the Adelsons. Okay, obviously those are two sports owners. And Mark Zuckerberg, now you have a guy who is also a sports figure. Dana White is on the board of Meta. I went to college with Mark Zuckerberg. I've been watching him in both a morbidly curious. I mean, was I the 199th person in the world to join Facebook? Yeah, maybe. Who's counting? Me? It used to be my URL, 199. But I say that because for 20 years, I watched a guy without any actual moral compass transact and scheme to become more and more powerful and more wealthy. Corruption is not created equal. Like, I think there's just a bunch of people out there who are like, but Hunter Biden. And I'm like, Hunter Biden, that was a terrible embarrassment for the Biden administration. There are lots of things the left, broadly speaking, has done that does fall into the realm of corruption and is embarrassing. I'm just telling you that nothing is as look at what we're doing, we're not even hiding it anymore, than invitations like that and just the pivot that someone like Mark Zuckerberg has taken. They're doing it, Dan, because it works. This is an administration that is welcome to quid pro quo. Miriam Adelson, by the way, the Adelson family, aforementioned, we did an episode about them, the biggest donors to Donald Trump. In exchange, they get to dictate policy on Israel. Mark Zuckerberg, the reason he's doing this is because he knows that he can give money in exchange for political favors and protection. It works, and that's why they're doing it. They're not stupid. They are just devious.
Pablo, people have known that forever. What's actually different now is something that you're not focusing on. It's that they've got the support of over half the country. We can talk all we want about who's the president. The fact is, when you've got 70 million people It is not. This is the country we are. We elected Trump to office, and now these owners and these billionaires, they've got the cover that they never had before. You don't need to work in the shadows when you have popular support. And that's what they have. Mark Zuckerberg knows that he's fine on Facebook. He looks at the stock price of Meta and he recognizes that it's being bolstered not by people who disagree with him, but by people who agree with him. So he's going to lean into that.
But I think that what David just did is the trick that got run in the campaign and now the aftermath, which is you voted for this. And I think on some level, of course, because it's two choices, yes, objectively true. But I just think that there has been a both sidesism to corruption that has undersold the magnitude on the side that won. And the side that won did not run on we are corruption, vote for corruption. They ran on all the other stuff. They ran on, again, sports topics. They ran on trans athletes. They ran on immigration. They ran on the stuff that is juicy, the stuff that actually like moves the needle in a town hall meeting. Corruption isn't one of those topics, but because the other stuff got voted for, corruption rides inside. And David, I just think that my faith relative to yours is in the idea that people, if they actually knew the magnitude and were presented with it by journalistic enterprises in a more rigorous and clear way, they would not actually say, we voted for corruption. They would say, oh, that was an unfortunate thing that happened in retrospect. We voted for the other stuff. Instead, we got the most corrupt administration in the history of American politics.
This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
From fireside conversations to football Sundays, winter means more moments with the coolest people in your life. Make these moments even better with Miller Lite. I know I do. The great-tasting light beer for people who love beer. A new year is a perfect time for friends, family, and great-tasting light beer. Tastes like Miller time. Recently, I had family over, and while everyone's palate is different, I knew they all like beer, and they all look like people who want to drink beer that actually tastes like beer. So I brought out a nice little silver platter of Miller Lite. That beautiful white can was an instant winner. Trust me, learn from my experience, set that bad boy out, and you will be making people happy left and right. Because Miller Lite is brewed for taste. It hits different than other light beers. The original light beer since 1975. And still the very best one. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you. Or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
Don Le Batard.
Pablo leads all of podcasting in reading while smiling. If you listen to ESPN Daily, he sounds like he's having the time of his life.
Stugotz.
Coming up next, I'm going to tell you how the Savannah Bananas are changing
How do you know I'm
Savannah Bananas.
How do you know I'm smiling?
That's how I find my vocal range. Sometimes I just say Savannah Bananas. Savannah Bananas.
Yeah. This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Pablo, were you the least successful member of your graduating class?
You know, I went through this exercise at our reunion.
Oh no, you went. That already is a bad sign,
right?
friend. Zuck was not at that
You didn't go to your wait, Billy, you didn't go to your.
We don't have college reunions.
Zuckerberg was a year ahead of me. There were some other candidates in my. You guys don't have college reunions?
No, college reunions.
I mean, we do. I just don't go to them.
Walking around. Yeah.
I haven't had one yet.
Like 60,000 people in a graduating class. I just see them in the streets every day.
Yeah.
Pablo, were you also on Facebook when it was just a hot or not website, or was that?
Yeah, so Facebook started as truly that.
Oh,
like
good.
it was a way.
Yeah, we've
for
seen the
Mark
movie.
Zuckerberg to.
We all saw Social Network, Pablo.
Well, I'm here to tell you, you saw a movie. I lived the movie.
What were the Winklevoss twins like?
Hit it.
I didn't see you in the movie.
Okay, Pablo.
College was a movie, The Social Network.
That's right.
Pablo,
right.
your desire to be so ahead of us intellectually gets in the way of actual discourse, because the corruption that you're discussing has existed since Jefferson, Burr, Hamilton. There's been government corruption since the beginning of time. Now you're saying they didn't vote for corruption?
No, what David is saying is actually the problem now. Your take has gotten worse. Your take is now corruption has always existed. We should not even remark upon its existence. Yes, it is. You're observing something. In the observation, you are wearing away the edges on what's actually interesting, which is that this is uniquely corrupt. And I'm just telling you that,
uniquely
yes, of
corrupt.
course,
You're saying, but Pablo, there's nothing unique about what's happening. It's just not hidden anymore. That's the only thing. If you want to say that's what's unique, then we can talk about that. But the level of corruption now by the big, go back to Ford, go back to when cars started, go back to the wheel or the steam engine.
To the wheel?
When I'm talking about corruption,
To the
when I'm
Model
talking
T.
about power,
Yeah.
oil.
Are you just naming old things now?
No, I'm naming every level of corruption that started with the
Tumbleweed.
caveman.
Swinging saloon doors.
Were you hot or not, Pablo? Like, what was your picture and what was like the percentage?
I think I did peak in college.
Really?
I thought they only rated women.
But of course they did.
To answer your question, though, in terms of like where do I rank in my college reunion, it does bring us back to the topic, because when I went to that reunion, Vivek Ramaswamy was there. And I just point out something. Vivek Ramaswamy drove a wedge into this insane coalition between Silicon Valley, deeply transactional, and America First, right? Because he was talking about like H-1B visas and you need more Indian immigrants and all that stuff. Go check out the last time Vivek Ramaswamy tweeted. The dude has been disappeared from the Republican Party since he dared to say something that was ideologically inconvenient for this coalition. So I'm just telling you that Vivek Ramaswamy's on the way down. I think I am absolutely back ahead of him. Damien Chazelle directed Whiplash and La La Land and those movies, so I think he's clearly the number one. But I'm up there. I'm up there, arguably, I would say.
Colin Jost your year?
I didn't like. Colin Jost was not. He was years ahead of me. We went to high school together. He's a good guy.
There you go.
High school.
Guys, I need some help here. I need some help. I need some help from all of you, because Pablo Torre has a very popular podcast, and he's likable to a certain select.
Can I clarify?
Thank you.
I am the least likable on your show, which is unfortunately one of the biggest platforms that I tend to
Join the club.
sometimes have. Everywhere else,
That's
I'm
how
like
this
the
works.
fun guy. Here, I'm like the scold, and I'm like,
Welcome to my world.
Really?
Pablo.
You're the fun guy elsewhere,
yeah.
huh? Are you?
Finally
Get
walking
better
a mile in
Wi-Fi.
my shoes, Pablo.
I am the fun. Dude, I am the Stugotz of MSNBC. Just to give you a clarity on what it's like for me over there. I come in wanting to talk about. I come in wanting to rank quarterbacks, literally, and it's a very different experience.
So we're trying
I
around
yell into
here.
people's
we're
lav mics.
Yeah.
You know, like Michelle Beadle.
we get the joke.
Aids,
We are
yeah.
trying to make you more likable around here, and you continue to just make it difficult at every turn. Billy and Stugotz are noticing at every turn that your arrogance is showing.
No, I like Pablo.
No, but Pablo.
Yeah,
but
not arrogant.
Pablo.
Stop Vivicking us.
What he just did is, I lived the movie. He's basically saying I was at the start of social media. It started with me. I invented it.
I was, though.
He says from his one-bedroom apartment.
I didn't make money on it. The two-bedroom.
Or apartment shaming?
A one bedroom in New York also. I mean, that's doing well for yourself.
Thank you, Jess. I didn't as the movie says, if you invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. I didn't invent Facebook. What I did, though, was watch Mark Zuckerberg's now wife, Priscilla Chan, live in my freshman entryway and send an email to us being like, hey, do you want to sign up for Mark's new website? And I did. And
You could have
Priscilla, by
saved
way,
the
like,
world. You could have stopped it all then and there.
That's the better take. Is that I was all too happy to sign up for the Hot or Not site and like stalk people in my classes because I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is actually convenient. Instead, yeah.
This is Pablo Torre. This MSNBC. You're making him a rising star. He's got the world's most expensive podcast, and he does journalism at a time that journalism is dying because you all gave it to Zuckerberg, and you're good with him and Musk doing journalism. And Pablo's out here,
and it's expensive,
fighting the good fight, but he does so with maximum eloquence. And MSNBC, this is what you've hitched your wagon to in terms of intellect.
Yeah, but this is beginning of.
This, meanwhile, David Samson toils in a tin can, 8 o'clock in the morning, doing better content, belching it out 50 minutes at a time. Pablo needs a team of people, needs an army of hundreds to give you this.
Yeah, but this is beginning of.
And poor Samson's just working with Coca and trying to get on MSNBC, and nobody invites him on MSNBC.
Well, they don't invite him on MSNBC because he thinks that corruption is the same now as it was before money entered politics. So,
and that AJ Brown's going to get cut.
Well, you're not.
I think Dan walked away when Samson just started saying stuff like the wheel. But that happened too. Yeah.
Do you guys understand? You've learned nothing from me, either one of you. Samson, Pablo, do you understand how hard it is to be less likable than me with your strident opinions?
Is that by the way, you are welcome. You are welcome for that.
He was just naming Monopoly pieces. He was like, the thimble.
Is that why you hired me, Dan?
You surround yourself with people who make you more likable.
The penguin.
That's what I did.
I was a boot guy. Anybody else a boot guy?
I like the little car and the doggy.
I was the little terrier.
I used the boat.
I was going to make a bootlicker joke, but I
Nobody
opted
saw
out.
Stugotz coming on that one from any angle. So your level of trepidation here as we enter, like, what are the interesting takeaways? What is the proper, not howling at the sky, correct temperament to have about what is clearly happening in this country? Which is the gulf between have and have-nots continues to grow. There's a desperation growing amid the have-nots, and the rich people keep accruing more power, more money, so that they will have all of it at the most desperate of times and can buy all the water when you need it for a firefight, can buy all the media when you need it for a power struggle on disinformation. Like, what's accurate as we enter a new 4 years where the American public have said flatly, what we care about is the economy and immigration, and the voting is swallowed by the desperation, and people are lonely and angry, and they'll vote for whatever represents change?
I think it's Silicon Valley. I think tech is actually the big difference. And that's the difference between the wheel and now, is that we are dealing with the foremost technological innovation presented to you by companies that aren't just seeking to protect themselves, but they actually do have a we know better than you perspective on this. It's not just that Silicon Valley is transactional, David, and they are willing to spend to preserve their own self-interests. It's that now you have them in concert with an administration that doesn't care about the ideology. They don't. Donald Trump's foremost motive is profit, and it's just naked in a way that's different. There were other guidelines and guardrails around, well, he won't do this because, he won't do that because there is shame, there is policy. He actually does believe this ideologically. And I'm not saying that Trump believes in nothing. I'm just saying that nothing compares to the profit that he wants to make. And when you have that in combination with the place that has the most money to spend, that does have ideas for how the policy should be different, it's just a remarkable combination that we're going to begin to see in full bloom. That's going to make the wheel and the corruption that existed in the era of like oil barons, it's going to be quaint because it's never been quite like this with Silicon Valley ascendant at this time.
The middle class has been disappearing for decades, number one. Number two, one of the most common misconceptions is people saying, oh, this is different. This isn't like it was. This is worse. This is getting out of hand. If you go back to the 70s, to the 60s, go back to the 20s, go back to the 1800s for crying out loud. People have the same point of view. This can't get any worse. The problem you have, Pablo, is that you're trying to explain to people something that they already know. You're not helping them find out something. You're not giving them an epiphany that, oh my God, look who I voted into office. I had no idea what he was about. Of course they know. Maybe in 2016 they didn't know, but in 2024, of course they did, which is why all of this shouting into the wind is not necessary, because this is our country. You like it or not, this is what we wanted and this is what we have.
Connor Scallions.
That's really good.
That's pretty good. Gotta say, it's pretty good.
Jeremy, you were making faces while Samson was talking.
Well, I guess the one thing that I would say is, yes, of course, corruption has always existed, David, and we as a country have constantly needed massive deals from the proper administrations to root out corruption and save us from disaster. And basically, since Reagan was president, we have only slashed and slashed and slashed and slashed on regulation and welcomed more and more and more and more corruption and money into government. And this is that time where people are so fed up and frustrated. Whether it's different or not, David, the perception is there for young people, for middle class people, for lower class people of this is enough. This rich guy and all of his rich friends profiting off of us, the labor. There are people who are fed up with that, and it seems to be more brazen, and more people have access to that information now than before. So the rich guys are buying up the information places and making it unable for Americans to communicate with each other in that respect without it being suppressed. That's a problem.
I don't love that Jeremy and I are both wearing glasses as we yell at David. It's just, I feel like we're diluting
extra
our
pretentious. Yeah,
likability
you're
at
right.
the same time. I do want to. I want to join Jeremy, though. I'm pushing back on David in this way. David said you find nothing out by explaining how corrupt and perhaps uniquely corrupt this administration is. The Silicon Valley thing is the part that I think we're underweighting here. Every day on this show, especially, but otherwise, we marvel at how unhappy we are about our phones and what is actually ruling our day-to-day life, right? We marvel at that as if it's new all of the time. The companies that made it that way did not make it that way, I think, credit to them, because they said, we would like to make everyone's lives miserable. What happened was they were like, we can innovate and create a device that can do all of these other things. We can connect to the world, as Mark Zuckerberg has always said. We can make it so that you have the access to the Library of Alexandria on command in your phone. What I'm saying is that the misery and the ruin of all of these institutions that we enjoy, but our happiness, first and foremost, okay, our happiness was an unintended consequence of people who thought that they knew better than everybody else. And when you don't regulate those people, and when you don't put up the guardrails via a political administration that is meant to not serve a profit motive, but to serve its actual citizens, at that point, not to sound like I'm running for goddamn office right now, you are doing something in which people have to discover I'm a frog in a pot of boiling water. That's what we are discovering every day because the products are actually that good. They are that good, David. And guess what?
I think you should buy stock in flip phones, Pablo. That's what you should do. Invest Violet's money in flip phones. Because that's what we're gonna start going backwards. Because the world has spoken. The people have spoken. They don't want this sort of progress. They don't want this sort of connectivity. The wool is over everybody's eyes. You got this one right, Pablo.
Well, listen, I'm just saying, like, you talk to people who design, there's a guy who designed the feature that is the infinity scroll. We all know it, right? Like, you don't have to actually, like, press a button. It just scrolls infinitely. Like a slot machine. It actually is sort of premised on slot machine technology, that famously non-addictive technology that everybody who uses loves, slot machines. People love it when you watch them play a slot machine. You're like, that person having the time of their life and not sad and old and dying. What is happening is that the people who invented this technology, the infinite scroll, social media at Facebook itself, their philosophy with their own kids is we wouldn't let them use this stuff. And I think you've heard that probably before, but it's real. It's true. And I'm not saying that to say I'm going to throw my phone into the ocean. I'm just saying the people who are telling you that they know the best, okay, are also the people who have access to avoid being stopped in a unique way. And it'd be one thing if they had proven it, but they haven't.
I regret all of this. I regret everything that we have done for the last 25 minutes.
Chris leaks.
There you go. We're back.
Except for that. I've been okay with that.
If your college was a movie, what movie would it be?
Good
Mine is
question.
obviously Rudy, but I don't know. David's maybe Legally Blonde.
So you guys have been looking for how long to try
Back to school, Jessica. That's my college, University of Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Movie, apparently.
Is that Rodney?
It came out around the time of The Wheel, I believe.
What year is Back to School? What year is Back to School?
I think it was 81.
Wait, I thought it was called Back to School Jessica.
It's Rodney Dangerfield.
Great movie.
Samson is.
I get no respect.
Samson, yes. Samson is incapable
Limited fake Rodney?
of making a movie reference
Try to lighten the
to
mood,
Jessica
Pablo.
that's not from 1981.
It was 86.
Okay, Back to School.
Liar.
As I recall, Rodney Dangerfield, is that the one he dives in? He's a swimmer of some sort?
Yeah,
Triple Lindy. Yeah.
I've actually seen that one.
Two old guys.
Go look at Rodney. Wait a minute. Why have we not been talking more about this during this segment instead of worrying about Zuckerberg? You're telling me that a 60-year-old Rodney Dangerfield, who looked 60 when he was 30, was shirtless in a movie Back to School and did the triple Lindy in order to win something in a movie.
Yet no one has ever pulled off the triple Lindy before or since. He went from one diving board to the next diving
Wait a
board
minute.
to another diving board,
He
and
was
then
not
in the
shirtless,
pool.
by the way.
And he wasn't shirtless. He had a skin-tight red tank top on with his beer belly. He was Van Wilder before Van Wilder.
Rodney.
So you guys are telling me that the triple Lindy was to go from one diving board to another diving board to another diving board? That was the big finish. Spoiler alert, the big finish to the Rodney Dangerfield movie.
His arms are so skinny.
This is what David Sampson is saying is
I gave him a 10.
his college experience.
Rodney.
It was filmed at Wisconsin, Dan.
It was so
If
good.
Jessica's going to say Rudy because of Notre Dame, then you have to say that Wisconsin is back to school.
Chris, did you just make a face because he called it Notre Dame?
Yeah, I mean, what are you doing there?
Notre Dame.
You're not better than me.
Yeah.
Put it on the poll, Juju. Is the person who says Notre Dame think he's better than you? He or she is better than you. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
From fireside conversations to football Sundays, winter means more moments with the coolest people in your life. Make these moments even better with Miller Lite. I know I do. The grape-tasting light beer for people who love beer. A new year is a perfect time for friends, family, and great-tasting light beer. Tastes like Miller time. Recently, I had family over, and while everyone's palate is different, I knew they all like beer, and they all look like people who want to drink beer that actually tastes like beer. So I brought out a nice little silver platter of Miller Lite. That beautiful white can was an instant winner. Trust me, learn from my experience, set that bad boy out, and you will be making people happy left and right. Because Miller Lite is brewed for taste. It hits different than other light beers. The original light beer since 1975. And still the very best one. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/Dan to find delivery options near you. Or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
Okay, guys, it says here I'm supposed to tell you about the refreshing tropical lime flavor of Mountain Dew Baja Blast. But what does refreshing tropical lime mean exactly? Allow me to describe it in a way that my fellow DraftKings players will understand. Mountain Dew Baja Blast tastes like a buzzer-beating three-pointer to cover the spread, nailing a multi-leg parlay, setting the perfect daily fantasy lineup. It's like hitting an underdog money line. And I want you to know that feeling too. So make your picks and then grab some tropical lime flavored Mountain Dew Baja Blast for you and your buds. Available wherever refreshing beverages are sold.